Hi, I'm Natasha Marchewka,
And I'm Kim Wilson.
and this is Speechless.
Speechless. Speechless.
Welcome to our behind the scenes take on real life in VO, where we share our stories, our resources, and our unsolicited opinions. Hi.
Yay! Today, we have to say we don't have drinks because we're getting a legal opinion and we want to,
keep it legal. Keep it legal.
It's always legal. It's just a little salty.
We're not going to live dangerously today.
No, we're not. We'll see. We'll see what Robert wants to do. Maybe he wants to grab a drink. So we're interviewing our first Speechless interview. We have more to come, but this is a special one. We're just moving a little horizontally, and we're talking to Robert Sciglimpaglia. And I'm going to confirm that that's the pronunciation of his name, because as a voice actor, that's our job to get it right. But Kim had an issue a couple weeks ago.
What? An issue? Me?
And over AI and a job as to whether or not she should I, shouldn't I, what's going on? We don't know.
Right.
We're just common folk. We need to understand. Right. And so we've got the incredibly talented Robert Sciglimpaglia, both a voice actor in his own right and a lawyer. Yes. To finally give the community a straight answer in layman's terms about AI, where we should kick those jobs to the curb and where there's a possibility for voice actors in the future.
That's right.
Because quite frankly, I've either ignored all the info or it's just over my head. And
until you actually have to experience a job, it was just all background noise to me. Oh yeah, AI. Yeah. Oh, that's terrible. That's is it a thing? And then when a client reached out to me, I was like, oh, this is a thing.
It is a thing. And then they say, we're going to give you thousands of dollars. And you're like, yay. Oh no, this really sucks. So we're going to interview Robert right now.
How do you pronounce your name?
Sciglimpaglia.
So the first thing we're going to talk about is Kim and Robert, the story. So Kim had an issue recently about AI, and she was scrambling. And then
I was, because suddenly it became a real thing where before I never really paid attention to it. And then all of a sudden it fell in my lap and a client was like, oh, we've got a little job for you in AI or TTS, text to speech job. And I was like, oh, let me see the specs. And then I was like, oh, these are really bad. And then I was like, what do I do? And then I called Robert, and Robert got back to me actually very quickly via email. And you know what he said? 2 words. Career suicide. I was like, oh, okay.
So we did mention that Robert is a lawyer, but he has a unique situation in our industry, and that is that he knows everything about law and everything about voiceover, right, Robert?
Yeah, pretty much.
He wrote a book called
Voiceover Legal.
Voiceover Legal, and it's been
out. You can find it on Amazon.
It's we'll put the link down in the chat in the comments. So he is the person to ask these important questions to. Of course, you have to hire him, but we'll talk about that after. Robert, can you share with us the 2 scenarios? Kim was explaining to me that there are 2 scenarios that we're seeing now regarding AI and voiceover.
Yeah, sure. I mean, well, actually, I can give you the history of AI too, because I was back in the beginning when it first started. I was involved too, because I directed the session for the Bixby voice, which is on the Samsung phones. Oh, okay. And all the Samsung appliances, they use the Bixby voice, so it's like the Siri voice for Apple. So I directed those initial sessions, and what they were doing back then was they were looking for a voice, to kind of be like the voice of the brand. Sure. And so you'd go in and we recorded for, it was at least 6 weeks or 8 weeks, so we went into and just, 4 or 5 hours a day, recording. And so then they used to pay really good money back then, it was 6-figure jobs back then. And that was at the beginning when
Right.
AI was just starting. And then it went to, well, we don't need to do this. We could just we could pay people $50, $50 Google gift card, or a Starbucks gift card, and
Oh
have them
my
come in
God.
and read stuff, and we'll do it that way. And so they had these companies pop up where that's what they were doing. They were, I don't know if you ever saw those ads. They were just, they were on Craigslist. $50, come in and speak in for 8 hours. We'll give you a $50 gift card. And
Oh
so
my
they were
gosh.
Wow.
so
No.
people
I'm
were off the street doing it.
horrified.
So, but then now they figured out, wait a minute, it doesn't really work well trying to put everything together when you have people that don't know how to professionally do the voiceover. So that's when they kind of did the hybrid now. Well, it went over to where they would get voiceover artists to do it, right? So 2-3 years ago, voiceover artists started getting these requests for jobs for translations, or things that were nebulous like that. You're going to be reading these 10,000 words or 10,000 lines for translation work. That's what it's going to be used for, in-house stuff, right? So
Right.
they would pay about $4 or $5 grand, right?
Right.
So,
Which seems like good money, by the way, at first.
right. So that's one of the camps, and what they would. Back then, they wouldn't even give you like a contract or anything, so you wouldn't really even know what was going on, right?
What is back then
It was like 2018, 2019.
Okay, so not that long ago.
No, not that long ago, a couple years ago.
Okay.
So, but it's been evolving so fast, so that
Okay.
like that was a long time ago for AI stuff.
Oh my
Okay.
gosh.
So now what they're doing is they have those camps of people that are doing the voiceovers like that, where they're paying $2,000 to $5,000. 5,000 is on the high end for reading like 10,000 lines, and they take the complete ownership of your files. They can do whatever they want with them in perpetuity. They can sell them to third parties. They can do anything. You're just selling yourself. You're selling your soul to the devil for $2 or $5 grand. But there are a bunch of little companies out there doing them. So you can do a whole bunch of them if you wanted to. If you wanted to do 20 of those. But what they do with those things is they sell them to these AI banks of voices. So, like you have live voices that are on producers' websites, things that we try to get onto as voiceover artists. Well, they have the same thing with artificial voices, right? So they sell them to those sites. So your voice will show up as, the voice of Henry on this bank, right?
Right.
And you don't get paid anything because you already did the job. So Apple, Google, Amazon, Microsoft, they're all doing these types of banks, right? And then they're licensing them out to these little companies that are creating these little banks of artificial voices, right?
Wow.
So they're the big ones. So like what happened in the Bev Standing case, Bev had done one for like that was supposedly for the American Institute for research for China, and it was bogus. That was just a whole ruse. It was a little company just trying to collect these voices. Wow. And she never signed a contract, and her voice ended up on TikTok, as you guys probably know. And so we were able to go after TikTok, and we successfully won the case. Microsoft did the same thing with another one of my clients out of UK, and these were all from a couple of years back when these were recorded.
Wow.
Right? So they weren't. That was before the contracts were developed. So if they had signed these contracts now, because it's the same thing that those talent did, back then without a contract, if they had signed the contracts now, they'd be out of luck. They'd have no recourse. They'd be done. So that's one camp.
Right.
So can you just explain before you go to the second camp, explain what happens when these little companies get this voice, and we've lost it now forever and ever. We've lost the rights to our voice. These little companies, can they now produce car commercials? I mean, what can they do?
Yeah. So what they do is they take your files, right? So they've taken ownership of your files, and they just put the files up on on an internet website somewhere.
Yeah.
Right. And anyone can go up. Like if you go to Azure, go to Microsoft Azure.
Yep.
Because that's the best example of what I'm talking about. right?
Okay.
So you go up there, you could paste, copy and paste any copy that you want into Azure, and it will come out. And you pick the voice that you want, and it will come out with a finished recorded file.
Wow.
Right. So you're selling basically the files, and then the machine puts it all together, computer puts it all together and spits out the final product.
Oh
so a lot of people now a lot of voiceover artists now are saying, well, it doesn't sound real. It's not a big deal. Well, they'll still be using my voice live because it doesn't sound real. Well, that was the case a few years ago. Now it sounds a lot. Mm-hmm. In a year now, I'm giving it a year, you'll never know the difference.
Yeah.
Right. And what happened with the voice actress out in the UK, she actually was up on Azure. Mm-hmm. And one of her clients, she does a lot of IVR. One of her IVR clients they fired her, and they were using it off. They were just taking the stuff off of Azure for the updates. Right. So we won against Microsoft too, and they're going to pull her stuff off. That was part of the deal. So that's one of the camps. Like when you do these recordings, they get sold forever. That goes up in these banks, and you have zero control over it ever again. So if you do a bunch of them, the chances are, if you do 20 of these, say you do 20 of these recordings for 20 different places, and you can actually just do one set of recordings, because now they don't even need you to read a script anymore. Now they could just have using like your podcast right here. They could take your voice off this podcast.
Oh goodness!
And create these files. They create the AI files. So they don't even need to do a particular script anymore. So a lot of places want you to read their script because they have their own specific, their own algorithms that they're using and stuff like that. But so that's the one. Both of them work the same. So you have but they're different because of the contracts. So one contract says you lose all ownership of everything. The other camp says that you're going to keep ownership of your files. We company are going to keep ownership of what our machine produces, right? On internet, whatever, that's got to be our property. But we're going to give you a residual, a royalty, if we sell these to third parties that's used for commercials and used for profit. So, and it usually has some kind of provision saying that you'll be able to negotiate with those third parties, or it'll have some kind of range, for the royalty, 8 to 10 or 8 to 15%, whatever. There's something in there, but it keeps the door open. So when your voice gets used in the future, you can actually make money off your voice by cloning you're cloning your voice, and you can it's another you. So when someone goes up to Azure and the IVR the place goes in there and makes the updates with your voice, you'll get a piece of it. So that's the good camp.
That's the good camp.
That's what everyone needs to know, that there is.
So when we see jobs on online casting sites, really, it's quite simple. In the specs, you want to look for something that says you will receive residuals.
You want to see ones that say, if they say that they're going to license the use of your files, they're going to pay you some kind of royalty or residual if it's used commercially by a third party.
Okay.
Those are the kind of things that you want to see. If they're saying they're going to take ownership in perpetuity, of the copyright and everything, and you have no recourse, and they're going to pay you a flat fee. Those are the ones. Those are the career suicide ones. That's career suicide, because
right?
You have zero control over that.
Right.
So I mean, I'm not saying it's going to cause your career, but you're
But
competing
you're losing
against
money
yourself.
You're
competing against yourself. What's the point of that? Why would you want to compete against your own voice? That's crazy, in my opinion. You got to be crazy for that. If they're gonna use a clone of your voice, wonderful.
How do people contact you, and what is your hiring process? As solopreneurs, we are freelance talent. Having a lawyer on hold, or whatever you call that, is not something really we're used to. What is the process for us to hire you if we have questions or something? Because I don't want everyone to just email you questions. It's not a free process. How does that work?
Well, I mean, I don't mind send people email me questions. That's
Be
fine.
careful
I mean,
what you say, Robert.
Kim knows, right? Kim.
Yeah.
Oh yeah, you're a lawyer.
Yeah.
You are careful what you say. Okay, go.
Yeah, it depends. It depends on how like it depends on what the answer is going to be.
That's right.
If I'm going to have to charge for it or not. So, but
Okay.
if it's no problem. Like that's how I get business. People email me or call me, and
That's right.
that's part of my job. So it's not a problem.
That's right. That's right.
So yeah, if you basically, if you get a contract in or that you want reviewed, contact me, and I usually charge, if it's under 5 pages, $150. If it's more than 5 pages, $250 for review of a contract. I can get involved in negotiations. I've done that, a lot of times before, when clients are like, oh, I'll suggest maybe the rate's a little. I usually don't get involved with the rates, but sometimes the rates are really low, and I'll say, I think that rate's a little low, and so they may want me to go back to negotiate, but I won't do it unless I'm negotiating the whole thing, because that kind of me stepping over into the agent territory. Like I don't just negotiate the price, but if I'm going back to negotiate the whole terms of the contract, then I could talk about the price at the same time, because it just makes it easier, more efficient.
Gosh,
So,
it's so nice to know you're in our corner, and we're so lucky to have you. Really grateful for you and your services and all you offer to the community. Thank you.
Oh, thank you.
So
My pleasure.
the bottom line is we contact you, and then you just say, this is the deal.
Right.
We don't have
Contact
to pay
me.
to hear your voice, to pick up the phone. Hi, this is Robert. $75.
No. The best way to get in touch with me is email.
Fantastic. Thank you so much
for
our questions. I appreciate you being here, and I hope that my business is easier next year when I reach out to you for different things. So thank you.
You're welcome.
Thank you.
You're very welcome.
So as usual, we'd love you to comment below. Of course, only nice comments. And feel free to email us anytime at speechlessvo@gmail.com. We will read them. And if it's a question for Robert, remember, you got to pay him. But we can forward your questions to him, and then he'll decide if he's going to get back to you. Please click to subscribe and click that bell to get notifications of when an episode is going live.
And don't forget,
fuck it. We've got shit to do. I keep forgetting how to say it. Fuck it.
Fuck it.
Be awesome now.
There you go.
We've got shit to do.
Because we've got shit to do. Bye.
Bye.